everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me as always, Brittany.
I can understand just how busy of a day it must be for you and the rest of Congress, because if lawmakers don't pass a funding bill by midnight tonight, the government will shut down. And Democrats are saying this is President Trump's shutdown. Republicans have called it the Schumer shutdown. But one thing's for certain, that it could shut down, it could not. There's a looming government shutdown. So to start the conversation, will the government shut down at 12:01?
Brittany, the question should be asked of the Republicans. They control everything in Washington. They control the White House, the Senate. The government's going to shut down because the House Republicans aren't even here. We have the House Democrats who are here in Washington, ready to work, seated at the negotiation table, ready to hammer out, the disagreements we have over the end of the fiscal year, continuing resolution, and the Republicans are on vacation. It doesn't have to be that way. We should be focused on making sure that we cancel the cuts that Republicans hit Americans with that caused 15 million people to lose their health care. We need to reduce healthcare costs because those are already way too high. And we have to make sure that we save Americans' healthcare. There are, in my district alone, over 200,000 people who would see their healthcare costs skyrocket if the enhanced premium tax credits for Affordable Care Act policies are not extended. I have the sixth most signups for the Affordable Care Act in the entire United States, and my state, Florida, has the most. So Floridians will be disproportionately devastated if Republicans don't come to the table.
I actually, about 2 hours ago, posed the same question to one of your Republican colleagues, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. To no surprise, Republicans are blaming Democrats. She said that although Republicans have control of the House, the Senate, and obviously the White House, they need 60 votes in the Senate to pass, and they just can't get there without Democrat support. And she said that this is a, quote, clean continuation of existing funding that Democrats had previously embraced multiple times, and, quote, Democrats are using this to try to get other unrelated things in here, one of those things being the extension of Obamacare subsidies. What do you make of her response?
That's baloney. A clean continuing resolution is the one that Democrats and Republicans, including Joe Biden and Donald Trump, agreed to last December. That's the continuing resolution that ensured that we had multiple different issues that were, including healthcare costs, that were addressed in that bill, and Republicans were willing to negotiate then. And why aren't they willing to negotiate now? Because they don't care that Americans' healthcare costs will skyrocket. The average family of four in my district that makes $64,000 a year, Brittany, would see their premiums go up $2,500 a year, 182%. 82,000 people in my district would lose their healthcare entirely. It doesn't have to be this way. Tomorrow is when premium increase notices start going out from health insurance companies. We don't have weeks to wait. We need to negotiate this right now. It is that important. As a breast cancer survivor, I can tell you, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, and Republicans don't seem to care. They will own this shutdown. Democrats are here ready to work, and they're AWOL.
I know that, and as you know, as everyone knows, if there is in fact a government shutdown, people will get furloughed. Hundreds of thousands of government workers will get furloughed. They will go without pay, including members of the military. A lot of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and when you live paycheck to paycheck, I lived paycheck to paycheck for years, and I'm sure that in people's minds, they don't really care who's to blame here. What they want is a paycheck. They want to make sure that they can keep a roof over their head, they can feed their families, they can pay to live. What do you say to those Americans?
I say that they should urge their Republican member of Congress to come back to Washington and sit down at the negotiating table so that we can get a spending deal done that eliminates these healthcare cuts, that ensures that we can lower healthcare costs and save Americans' healthcare. That is a dire situation that if we don't do that, then you're going to have millions and millions more people who will be living not just paycheck to paycheck, but who will be having to start making extremely difficult choices. You'll see hospitals start closing. There was in Jackson South in Miami, They actually just closed their maternity ward because they know that with the cuts coming, they won't be able to afford to keep it open, and patients are going to have to travel much further distances to be able to deliver babies in Miami, which is a large metropolitan area. In rural areas, it's going to be even worse. These are all Republican-inflicted problems that are totally unnecessary, and we need to sit down and work these out.
Senator Josh Hawley is one Republican that has been vocal on wanting to work with Democrats in this area. But he did say this to CNN: "I don't understand what shutting down government has to do with that. My message to them, Democrats, is like, hey, I will work with you on all of those things. I think there's a lot of common ground, but let's leave the government funding out of it." Do you see his point or agree with him at all that, hey, let's keep the government open and working so people can keep having their jobs and we can hash this out in 7 or so weeks?
I'm glad to hear that Josh Hawley is willing to have a conversation. We need to have that conversation right now. Those premium increases, healthcare costs are going to start going up tomorrow. Those notices go out starting tomorrow. We don't have 7 weeks, and we can't trust Donald Trump to actually keep his word. His response to Democrats when as we've been insisting on making sure that we can eliminate the cuts and save people's health care and reduce their health care costs, was to not just say he would furlough federal employees, but that he asked every federal agency to draw up lists of federal workers who they're threatening to permanently fire. Even though they've already done that during DOGE, and they've had to bring hundreds of thousands back because they know they can't run the government without them. This is an administration and a Republican leadership that does not care about the plight of the average working family who needs to be able to go to the doctor and pay their rent and put groceries in the refrigerator and deal with the everyday skyrocketing costs that are increasing because of Republicans. And they aren't even here to sit down and hash this out with us. We don't have 7 weeks. We need to do it right now.
You've mentioned a few times in this conversation, Republicans aren't here. Where are they? Are they in D.C.?
No, they're not in D.C. They canceled, Speaker Mike Johnson canceled votes. We were supposed to have votes yesterday and today. He canceled them last week. And Republicans have not come back to town this week, in the last 48 hours before the fiscal year ends. And Democrats did come back. We're here ready to work. Actually, the whole Senate is here. They're in session, Democrats and Republicans. House Democrats are here. House Republicans are not. How serious could they possibly be about avoiding a government shutdown if they're not even here ready to work?
And you and I had a conversation 2 weeks ago, and you were talking about working. This was completely different. It was about Jeffrey Epstein, but you worked across the aisle with people like Congressman Tim Burchett. So obviously, you can have conversations with Republicans. Are you having conversations with Republicans on this now? And what do those conversations look like?
Well, on the House side, there are very few here. I did see Congressman Womack from Arkansas, who's always a thoughtful leader, and I've seen him say in the news that we need to sit down and work things out, and particularly on the enhanced healthcare tax credits. But he's alone, literally alone, because there's no one else here. It's astonishing that they would. I mean, like I said, how much could they possibly care about avoiding a government shutdown if you have the majority that runs the House of Representatives not even here to sit down and try to help us avoid that?
I mean, that's just, it's just astonishing that there. So, I mean, I'm a little confused. So,
you're at a loss for words, is what you are.
Will there definitely be a government shutdown tonight if House Republicans aren't there?
Well, if in some way the White House is able to negotiate with our leadership and Senate leadership, I assume Mike Johnson would come back and would be part of any conversation. But we've got about 9 hours left. I know there are no talks scheduled at the moment, and not because we don't want them, but because Republicans have refused to entertain them. It's on them. It's in their lap. We are here ready to work, and they are not.
And you mentioned this before, but the Office of Management and Budget is preparing for mass firings, and this obviously is not precedented with government shutdowns. Usually government workers are temporarily furloughed. Do you think they're going to follow through on that threat, and what do you think that means for the government going forward?
I hope they don't follow through on that threat. I think they're using it as an intimidation tactic to try to bully Democrats into, retreating. But you can't retreat. Like I said, I had breast cancer 17 and a half years ago. One day I was the picture of health. The next day I found a lump in my breast and I had breast cancer. And then I found out I was at much higher risk of having breast cancer again and ovarian cancer because I carry a mutation that made that more likely. I had healthcare coverage, so I was able to get it taken care of. But if the 200 and something thousand people in my district, 203,000 people in my district lose their enhanced tax credits, 82,000 of them will lose their healthcare entirely, and the others will see their healthcare costs skyrocket, and they'll have to make the devastating choice between paying other bills or their healthcare premiums or dropping their coverage entirely. And that's not a choice that anyone should have to make, because you never know whether you're going to face a healthcare crisis. Republicans obviously don't care about that.
Congresswoman, I always say this, but I feel really lucky in my role being able to speak with members across the aisle. And usually there's places where there is a glimmer of bipartisanship. This is one of those times it doesn't really seem like that based on my conversation with a Republican 2 hours ago and you right now. It seems like the parties right now are entrenched in their positions right now. It does seem, and I'm not predicting, but from my conversations, from all other reporting, that we are moving in the direction of a government shutdown. I mean, are you lobbying Senator Schumer? What does that really look like?
I mean, I'm on the same side as Senator Schumer here because I want to make sure that we can cancel those cuts that are devastating for folks. I want to make sure that we can keep healthcare costs low, and I want to make sure that we can guarantee that people have access to healthcare and save it. So we're here. The shutdown is entirely avoidable. I've been a senior appropriator and been on the Appropriations Committee, Brittany, for almost all the years I've been in Congress, and I've never seen one side, the Republicans, refuse to even be in the Capitol, never mind at the table, to try to avoid a shutdown all the way up to the brink. They have brought us to the brink, and I mean, this is on them. They control everything. They can try to deflect and distort and lie, and they are lying when they say that we're trying to, protect people who are undocumented, because it was already against federal law. They don't get Medicaid. They don't get enhanced premium tax credits. That's all a lie. We're talking about citizens, American citizens, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of citizens who will lose, millions cumulatively, will lose their health care or will see their health care costs skyrocket. There are some Republicans. It doesn't have to be this way. I know that there are Republicans on the other side of the aisle who are willing to sit down and hash this out. It just doesn't appear that their leadership is intending to follow up on that.
And I do just want to get back to Republicans not being in D.C. Did House Speaker Mike Johnson tell the House Democrats why they aren't there? I mean, did any Republican on the Appropriations Committee or any other committee you're on explain their absence?
They said that they passed the CR and they left him. And then he canceled the session days for yesterday and today. There's no explanation other than that they have no regard for the impact of shutting the government down and of watching people's healthcare costs skyrocket as a result of their refusal to negotiate.
And as you know, the longest government shutdown happened in President Trump's first term. That was 35 days. But at some point, the government can't shut down forever. It's not shut down yet. It's looking that way. But someone's going to have to buckle here. It doesn't seem like anyone is right now. What do you think is going to be the breaking point? I mean, how long can this go on?
House Democrats had a press conference on the steps of the United States Capitol this morning, and we had people who would really be personally impacted by the increase in healthcare costs if Republicans refuse to extend them. One woman who has twin 13-year-old boys, both of whom have autism, if she doesn't get those enhanced premium tax credits and Medicaid isn't restored, her boys are going to be devastated in terms of their health and their progress. Another man joined us who has stage 4 rare cancer. If he doesn't have those enhanced tax credits, he won't have healthcare coverage and won't be able to get the kind of cancer treatment that he's been able to stay alive as a result of. These stories happen all over the country right now, and even more of them will occur, millions more, if Republicans don't just. We're supposed to negotiate. The founding fathers created a legislative process that requires us to sit down and reach across the aisle. No one gets their way completely. I've always worked in a bipartisan fashion, as you pointed out. We can sit down and negotiate this, and give a little, take a little, and avoid a shutdown. Even if we shut down, we should be sitting down immediately, not waiting 7 weeks. People who need to make sure they have affordable health care, they can't wait 7 weeks because those premium increases are coming starting tomorrow.
And as you know, service members don't collect a paycheck when the government shuts down. Federal workers don't collect a paycheck when the government shuts down. Congress does still get paid during a government shutdown. Republican and Democratic lawmakers did say that they would defer their paychecks. Some of them have, should the shutdown come to fruition. Is that something you agree with?
I think every individual member has to make their own choice about whether or not they can afford to forego their own pay. I mean, from my perspective, I want to do everything I can to avoid a shutdown. And that's what I'm going to do, stay here, make sure that I can focus on trying to get everyone to the table to ensure that we can cancel the cuts and keep people's healthcare costs low and save people's healthcare. That's what this is about.
Well, Congresswoman, there's certainly a lot to look out for, and I hope you can come back on and join me again soon as we see talks progress. Thank you so much for the time today.
Always happy to, Brittany. Thank you so much.